Investments and/or investment strategies recommended and/or purchased by advisor or product made reference to directly or indirectly will be profitable. Different types of investment involve varying degrees of risk, and there can be no assurance that any specific investment will either be suitable or profitable for a client's investment portfolio. No client or prospective client should assume that any information presented serves as the receipt of or substitute for personalized investment advice from the advisor or any other investment professional.
Welcome to the Bullington Capital Report, hosted by Bill Bullington. For the next hour, you'll receive information on current market conditions and trends that could affect your financial future. If you have a question, you can participate in today's program by calling 216-901-0945. That's 216-901-0WHK. You can also reach Bill by going to his website, bullingtoncapital.com. And now, here's Bill Bullington.
Well, welcome back, everybody. I've been reading and that's actually a part of my job, and it's a good thing I like it. And otherwise, I'd be tortured to death. But it is really interesting. So the stuff I was reading this week was about AI, artificial intelligence, and how that's going to affect a lot of jobs. It'll actually create a lot of jobs, by the way. It's going to create a tremendous number of jobs, and you'll have to get training though. And that's kind of key. So, and that's not such a bad thing. I forget how many college kids ever graduate every year, but there are a ton of them. So this is a field that's just opening up, and it's one of the more rapidly growing fields. Got to have special skills, and but the pay is worth it. And the pay in that industry is pretty high right now, anyway. And it'll actually take a lot of jobs that are just dangerous, monotonous, repetitive. So that part's going to be good. Are they going to replace people completely? Nah. Probably not. But, I can't imagine, at some point in time, maybe a robot will be following you around Home Depot or Lowe's and asking you what, they can get for you. And, when it's on the top rack, it'll just extend itself up there, pick it up and hand it to you. I wouldn't hold my breath on that one. But it is coming. And the thing that's really important about this is when people have a tendency to get really, really negative on the financial markets. And now's not a good time to be super negative. It's okay, to be concerned. And by the way, that's the media's job, is to try to scare people. People will pay much more attention to bad news than they do to good news. And the old saying, if it bleeds, it leads. I know you probably are sick of hearing me say that right now, but it's still true. So even though it's old and tired, it's still true. And people have a tendency to, we're humans, and people have figured out how to capture some of that stuff. And believe me, AI, it's unbelievable the amount of material out there. If you Google it, if you're bored, don't know what to do, get your laptop open or go to your computer in your home and just Google AI and see what comes up, and read a couple of the articles. It is mind-boggling, absolutely mind-boggling, the amount of things that can do. And is it going to replace all human jobs? Let's see. Maybe in 30 or 40 years from now, So don't get upset now over it. It is way too early for that. Is it replacing jobs now? Yeah, and it will be. It's fairly a slow progress, and reminds me a lot of what I read about in the early 1900s when they first started producing cars, and tractors. The tractors was a really good one. The farmers were very upset. You can't; those machines are unreliable. They're going to displace all these workers, and they had a contest. Some guys got their prize mules out and put the plows up on them, and they're going to compete against the tractors and see who wins. And for some reason, the temperature got up extraordinarily high, and I want to say it was over 100 degrees, but so it was extraordinarily high where they had these competitions. And so some of the farmers lost their prized mules because they went ahead and competed anyway in that weather. And they literally, the poor mules died, plowing in that heat. And the tractors just kept on going. And I guess that settled that. That was a very nasty way, but occasionally, progress is going to happen. Progress is just absolutely going to happen, and it's pretty good. When you look at the process, it's very difficult if you're caught up in that, and I feel bad for a lot of people who are going to lose their jobs, but a lot of those jobs are pretty dangerous. A lot of them are very monotonous, so that can't be healthy for you. Standing on your feet doing something that is not very challenging. That could be tough, especially when if you're working full time for 40 hours a week, many of them 50 or 60 hours. That's not a healthy environment to be in. I look back to when I was growing up in this area, there were a ton of people who worked for one of the big steel companies or one of the automotive manufacturers or the thousands of smaller contractors who made parts and pieces for those larger companies. And those jobs, it's no wonder the life expectancy was so short, realistically. And it's no wonder that the life expectancies are extending now. The life expectancy has been going up almost every year. Not by a lot, but a little bit. And but you do that 20 years in a row, and that simple compounding at even a 0.5%. Makes a pretty big difference in life expectancy. So, yeah, planning on living longer, that's where you really have to start thinking about, well, how are you going to make your money last through that entire period? That's a big deal. If you're living longer, money's got to last longer. And it's not just the money that's got to last, but also the fact that inflation is going to make it that much harder, that you'll have to be returning inflation plus. And it's we've got our work cut out for us big time. And I don't think I see a lot of plans. I talk to a lot of people, and it's unbelievable how overconfident these people are. I mean, I'm listening to their conversations, and I'm just thinking to myself, holy cow, boy. The financial advisors have a lot of work to do, and it's the realities are pretty difficult. I mean, when you're starting to think about, well, people are starting to live longer, or they've been living longer. Actually, I think the life expectancy actually ticked back a little bit this last couple of years, but not a lot. But still, when you're let's see, if the average person lives to age 70, that's the average person, by the way. The older you get, the more likely it is that you're going to keep living. So the average life expectancy of a 65-year-old is actually, I forgot what that is. I'll have to look it back up. But when you start seeing the average life expectancies are only 70, okay, that's for people that are younger. And again, that's been creeping up. But the older you get, the more likely you are to keep on living. That's my point. So the average life expectancy of somebody who's 65 is going to be a lot higher than 70, if that makes sense. What it means is you got to be careful with your money. You need to be investing in tried and true theories. It just kill him. I was at a wedding reception just recently, and this lady at this table I was sitting at she found out I was a financial advisor, and she just starts grilling me how nobody needs a financial advisor anymore. They can do better jobs themselves. And I'm listening and going, let me ask you a question. Do you know what the price to sales ratio of the S&P 500 is? And no answer. She didn't know. Well, let me give you an easier one. Do you know what the price to earnings ratio in the S&P 500 is right now? And again, no answer. So here's how you picked your investments. Let me guess. You looked at the ones with the best 5 and 10 year performance and said, "Yep, that's it. That's what I want." Oh, she goes, "Well, yeah." And I'm going, "Well, that's a lot like getting in your car and driving in your rearview mirror by looking in your rearview mirror at where you've just been. I would not recommend that. If you're going to drive your car, you'd better be looking out the front and not in the past. And there's nothing you can do about the past anyway. But you got to be aware of what could potentially happen." And my question to her was, well, what are you going to do if you get into a situation like 2000 through 2003, where the S&P was down 50%, and it took until the last month of 2007 to recover, right before it went down over 50% again. And there's a 10-year period there where the return on that was negative. 10 years. So go look it up. I never say something that you can't look up, by the way, because I want you to be able to fact check me. Unlike some people in our politics, we have to tell the truth. We would lose our licenses if we didn't. I don't know if you have to have a license to be a politician, but they should start applying some of those same rules to those guys as they do us. But anyway, yeah, because I'm jealous. But anyway, just having a little fun this morning. Yeah, it's crazy. There's always something, And that's the other thing that people think world's going to stop growing, or it's going to stop evolving. Really? I mean, do you know how far we've come? And we're going to stop now? I don't think so. But in fact, here's it. So I have a Bloomberg subscription, which I'll probably have until my contract is up. Yeah, but I have a Bloomberg subscription, and with that subscription, they have their Bloomberg. Bloomberg bought out Business Week a long time ago, and so they call it now Bloomberg Business Week. Very good publication. You can pick it up at Barnes & Noble, actually. And anyway, in fact, that's where I bought this one, despite the fact I have a Bloomberg subscription, which is pretty expensive, actually. Very expensive, actually. I just wanted the best data and access to a lot of these stories, and oftentimes, I spend a lot of time reading about the economy, about new developments in the economy, what the Fed's doing. The Fed controls the money supply, which is actually controls the economy. And so there's a whole bunch of really good information in there. I mean, I've got about a minute here before I got to take a real quick commercial break. So I'm just going to tell you, this is Bill Bullington. I'm here every Saturday morning from 11 to noon. If you'd like to reach me, you can go to my website, bullingtoncapital.com. And I'm going to take a break for commercial messages. I'll be right back.
It was a day just like any other day.
And we're back. Hey, this is Bill Bullington right here on 1420 every Saturday morning from 11 to noon. If you'd like to call in today, the number is 216-901-0945. Going to be here for about another hour and a half. Who knew? just kidding. But, yeah, call and ask a question. And I will tell you, I know some people want specific. We can't really do specifics because legally we need to know about your financial situation to be able to give you advice. So if you want to do that, there's no cost to it. You can call me. Just go to my website. It's bullingtoncapital.com. And there's all kinds of contact information there. And I'd be glad to have a conversation with you. There's no cost. There's no obligation. You can just get what I think would be good for you. I'll ask you some questions. And so that's how that works. Know your client is a big deal in my industry. You have to ask a lot of questions. You have to get to know what somebody's trying to do, what their risk tolerance is. And I was so glad to see, it's been a few years ago now, but I've used to see these risk tolerance questionnaires, and they would have like 40 questions. And by the end of the time period that it took to answer all those questions, everybody was just fatigued. I mean, everybody. And I've made up my own, about 10 questions, and felt like it was, met all the criteria that you needed from the SEC in State of Ohio Department of Securities. And so then, and I even, when I got audited, I showed it to them and said, hey, I just want to get your opinion on this, and they looked that over and they're like, yeah, okay. And I'm like, great, because I was able to stop using the 40-page questionnaires that made people's eyes just glass over, and they didn't understand what they were answering, to, and just brutal. But anyway, and then now I'm looking at a lot of the software that's out there to help kind of try to evaluate what kind of risk taker you are, and they're using my material. I knew I should have copyrighted that, but anyway. So, no, if you want to do a good job, you have to know how much risk you're actually willing to accept. And you need to know how much risk you've got in your portfolio. I keep thinking back to this conversation I had with somebody who found out I was a financial advisor. By the way, if you are a financial advisor, you've probably experienced this yourself. Everywhere you go, when people that don't know you, some sort of an event where there's going to be people sitting at tables and talking like a wedding reception. You guys all probably know this, but you just get grilled. I mean, people, especially when you do a radio show, people just, some people, I should say, just want to grill you. And it was unbelievable. And I finally had to just tell a lady, listen, I didn't come here to work, and I normally get paid for the work I'm doing. And here you are trying to get something for nothing. And you're being argumentative and insulting. So how about we just drop this conversation right now? And anyway, so that was the end of that. But I was just laughing because I was thinking, holy cow, some things never change. If you start talking to people, finance is very personal. Very personal. And you don't want to talk about it to just anybody. And like, if you hear my voice and it irritates you, don't call me. Realistically. But you hear me and you think it's okay, and there's a certain type of personality, I get it. And that's the personality I like to attract. And there's a certain type of personality who's going to be offended, and that's fine too. I actually don't mind that. You really need to get along with your financial advisor, big time. As if you're not looking at things through the same scope. Occasionally, somebody's looking at something and it's incorrect. And it's not as common as it used to be, but it's one of those areas where you just, as you get older especially, like I'm looking now, and most of my clients are older than I am. And I see a lot of people going to nursing homes. That's unbelievably expensive. And if you haven't done very, very well, you're going to, draw down an awful lot of money off of your investment and savings accounts. So something that you might want to discuss. And there are attorneys who specialize in that. And that's, in a lot of cases, that's what I'm going to recommend is that, you really need to talk to an attorney and set up, some various trusts. They've got specialized trusts for that. If you don't have a will and a trust anyway, you should probably get one. And I'm telling you, you should see the amount that I've seen, the amount of conflict I've seen in families because they didn't have a financial plan in place for dying, And one thing I can guarantee you, we're all going to die. That's that's a guarantee. What did they say? What did they guarantee? Life and death and taxes, 2 guarantees in life. But yeah, and I've had enough of taxes. But yeah, I don't know. Hopefully, I'll stay here another 20 years. That would be good. And I think I'd be ready to go. But how morbid is that? I'm laughing quite a bit this morning. But anyway, I was looking at, I love the Bloomberg Business Week. Actually, and again, you can get it at Barnes & Noble. You don't even have to be I get one because I have a subscription to Bloomberg. And talk about amazing. That the Bloomberg database has, I don't care what it is, if it's financial, they have data on it, something. And it is mind-boggling. I used their programming tool to be able to go in and set up models that I run with their data, and that's where I got my favorite. Well, one of my favorite models. I built it long time ago, and then for a while I didn't use it because the people that were in it, some of the people, they didn't like all the turnover. I'm like, okay, well, buying and holding, if you're doing that with individual stocks, that could be downright dangerous. Not a good idea. I'm not a big fan of buying and holding individual stocks. Okay? You buy and you manage. You have to manage, otherwise your returns are going to, not be so special. And it's really good to have an entire, a fully developed investment idea, one that tells you when you're going to buy, when you're going to sell, and how much. So when you're going to buy, when you're selling, how much of the portfolio are you going to put into that stock? If you don't know the answer to those questions, you're goofing around. And this is not something that I take retirement planning pretty seriously. As this is it. I mean, it's all you got. You get one retirement. And so you just need to give some extra thought to that. And the poor lady, she was drinking, so I'm gonna give her a pass. But oh my gosh, it was unbelievable. It was so confrontational. I'm like, well, I finally this is how I ended the conversation. I just looked at her and said, "Are you married?" And she looks at me. She knew what I was implying, that she was being, over the top. And so that was actually the end of the conversation. But that happens sometimes. Part of the perils of being a financial advisor. You get somebody that wants to show you how much they know. I'm like, I really don't care how much you know. It doesn't. I didn't come here to, most of the time, outside of the office, we don't want to talk about this stuff. We do it all day, every day. It's always on our minds. And so when you're out, doing something leisurely or social, you want to be social. You don't want to be talking about business. So keep that in mind. Yeah, I'm doing this for all the other financial advisors out there. Yeah, I'm sure you had to put up with that over time periods. And today you can do anything you want to do. You can learn how to put a roof on your house. You just go to YouTube. Plumbing, how to fix your car. Yeah, there's no lack of available knowledge to you out there. Everything that you can do, you can. If you can't find it on the internet, man, it probably doesn't exist. And so it's how you're going to spend your time. Do you really want to spend your time? How do you handle risk? What happens when stock market's doing poorly? When you pick up the phone, I had a call this week, and poor lady, see, market's not been super stable over the last couple months, and she's upset, and I get it. And that's my job. Hey, let's go back. Let's review. Let's see why we're doing what we're doing. What are we holding? What does the potential of that look like in the long run? And just that reminder, and it's like coaching, if everybody in the NFL had to play 4 years of college ball, well, most of them have, okay? Most of them 5, because a lot of them get redshirted. Anyway, it's not like they don't know how to play football. An NFL football player knows how to play football. So why do they still have a coach? Why would you have a coach? If you're like I was, I started at 9 and I was 22 at the end of college. And so that's a lot of experience. And I even got invited. I didn't get drafted. I got invited to try out for the Cincinnati Bengals. The Browns skipped me. Actually, no, they had come to our office and said, hey, you guys can walk on if you'd like to. You can come up and work out with us. And you never know. A lot of the ball players have been found that way. But I only played football because it was paying for school. That's why I played. I didn't really like this sport that much. It was okay. And thankfully, I was good enough to get a scholarship, because the other alternative I would have had to gone into the military directly out of high school. And wasn't like super looking into that. And then I thought, well, yeah, maybe I'll just give football a shot. And it's probably a little easier than going into the military. Wrong, except for the part where you're not getting shot at. That's a good thing. But football is, college athletics for the scholarship sports, man, they work those kids to death. And if you're out there, if you're in human resources and you have to hire, you want to go find scholarship athletes. There were a lot of companies that would not, that was their hiring practices, especially in their sales divisions. They would go ask for graduates that had that were there on scholarship or just played, varsity sports, because the amount of discipline that takes, the amount of effort that takes, I've never had to work that hard again. I've never had to work that hard again. And so listen up here, people, if you're in personnel, and just, if you don't know this already, you should probably look at scholarship athletes, because you eat, sleep, and breathe your sport, and then you're supposed to go to school. So if you get good grades, you are really, you're top notch. I mean, you'll probably survive just about everything. So anyway, what does that have to do with investing? Well, investing can be difficult. It's difficult when the market's not moving or the market's going down and you see the value of your investments dropping. That's hard. But you know that another day is coming, and at some point in time, especially in America, the way that our economy is set up, prices will rise. Prices on your groceries, prices on the stocks of the companies who are supplying those groceries will go up over time. That's not if, that's when. So I'm trying to give you a pep talk here. If you're looking out, it's absolutely, things are going to go higher. Look at, if you don't believe that, well, it's probably because you're under the age of 20. Yeah, you haven't been around that long. You haven't been observing. And by the way, a lot of those kids already know that. So I guess you probably say around the age of 12. But that's what's going to happen. And what's really sad is a lot of people will get too conservative, and inflation just kills their income because inflation's going up and their income is not. Okay, so you have to be careful. That's one of the things, one of the dangers of specific types of annuities. And by the way, there are tons of different types of annuities out there, but some of them who guarantee lifetime income, the guarantee is not guaranteed to go up. And so you got to watch out for that. If you're going to be getting something like that, you want to make sure that there's some methodology that there's a chance that the income can rise over time to try to keep up with inflation, or at least offset it a little bit. But and that's a whole conversation. So if you have a conversation, I was used to talk about specific annuities. I don't really want to do that anymore, just because of all the conversations that I've had. That's something that you really need to sit down with an advisor and go through as many options as that advisor knows about, because not everybody's the same. Not everybody has the same goal. I've got a pretty significant chunk of my assets invested in annuities that I'm going to turn on just for the income, and that's what I bought it for. Between annuities and Social Security, I'm good to go. And I would say, I've got more than I need. That's a good thing, and I'm blessed to be in that spot. And but it's a lot of work, getting to that point. I get it. And anyway, so when you call us, when I'm taking a look at it, I'm going to speak to you probably a little faster than I'm speaking now, because now I'm thinking a lot more, and I'll be asking more questions. If you had decided to come in and talk about your situation. But anyway, I've only got a few seconds here. I got to take a real quick commercial break. This is Bill Bullington. I'm here every Saturday morning, now from 10 to noon, and I'll be back after these messages. Well, welcome back. It's interesting. I was, by the way, my name is Bill Bullington, and I am here every Saturday morning from 10 to noon now. You can go to my website, bullingtoncapital.com, if you'd like to contact me. No problem. We'll get back to you as quickly as humanly possible. And it was this issue of Bloomberg Business Week, actually, this one's a month old already. Or no, it's actually several months old. Oh, what do you know? Yeah, but anyway, I got it, and I'm really interested in a lot of the articles. You can tell I'm like super behind on my reading. But I do have a Bloomberg terminal, incidentally, and I use that every day. So the magazine's not as important. All the articles that show up in the magazine are on the service itself as well. And there was one article in there that I thought was really interesting. It's this lady, her name is Stacy Vanek Smith, and she's evaluating the legacies of the quarterly cycle. Basically, publicly traded companies have quarterly reports that they publish for all their investors, and they're kind of taking a look at it, and it surprises me that this article is coming out at this point in time, because I would have thought that they would have recognized it, and I'm sure they did, a long time ago. Now it's just starting to get some publicity. or people are saying, hey, you know what? Maybe we should probably not report every quarter because, things can happen that may be unusual, and it can cause a lot of fear in an awful lot of investors, unnecessarily so. And I get that. There's no doubt in my mind that it would probably be better. They're talking about delaying I think probably once every 6 months would be pretty good. They didn't really talk too much about what they thought the other options should be. And even once a year, I would be fine if it was once a year. And they're like, they do an annual report, but it recapitulates a lot of what they've reported on earlier in the year. And if you're looking at your long-term investments more than once a year, and you're doing a lot of research on it more than once a year, I don't know that anybody would have the kind of time it takes to do that. Unless, and that's probably one of the reasons that Warren Buffett held so few stocks when he was young, because it was a lot of work. And if it's a good company and you like it, why wouldn't you just keep investing in that company? Had concentrated portfolios. It's a lot easier to track 10 companies than it is 100, by far. But today it's really kind of gone away of let's just do a fund, let the fund take care of it, and that's fine. They have most of the portfolios we're running have a lot of funds in them, and my favorite portfolio is one that's got stocks, it's got funds in it, and depending on how aggressive you are, or how much risk you really want to take, how much fluctuation you want to see, the percentage of the stocks versus bonds is incredibly important. Bonds don't fluctuate as much as stocks do. They still fluctuate, by the way. And some bonds, I hate to put the word bonds out there because that can mean a whole ton of different things. Convertible bonds, junk bonds, those things move a lot like stocks. They're the price movement, and they get short-term treasury bonds, bills and notes, and those things, the shorter they are, the less they are likely they are to fluctuate a lot. They can fluctuate, but generally it's not very much. So anyway, there's a lot to this, and that's the part that I'm thinking about this conversation I had with this lady. Just typical, the bravado, and just so, hey, I got this, and I asked her just a couple questions about her portfolios. She didn't know the answers. And I'm like, holy cow, I just shut up. I don't want to say anything else. Didn't want to make anybody uncomfortable. I was like, oh, okay. All right. Yeah, well, I'm kind of, we probably shouldn't talk about this anymore. In fact, it was making the other people around us a little nervous at that point. And so I'm just like, wow, that is mind-boggling. And but I've seen it, more than once. And the thing is, as a financial advisor, especially when you're fee-based, okay, that means I get a management fee. I don't get commissions. I get a management fee. And if you make more money, so do I. If your investments go down in value, I'm getting less. So I am tied directly to your success. The more successful you are, the more successful I am. And when you start losing money, I'm getting a pay cut. By the way, my office space rent doesn't go down. So I'm seeing that pay cut in multiple ways. My goal, our objective, is to try to help you make as much as you can. But we also have to stay within your risk tolerances. And like I said a little bit earlier, I can give you the risk tolerance, how you can assess yourself. This is very simple. Just take out a pad, get a pen, write down what you're investing in the markets today. Okay, and if you're not, you actually should write down all of your savings. Okay, this helps a lot when the market goes down. If you've written down all of your savings, I'm going to assume that a fairly large portion of you, significant portion of your assets are going to be in short-term, like money market accounts. By the way, Fidelity's got some of the highest paying money market accounts in the country. So we do a lot of those accounts for people. And they have free check writing. You can log on and look at all the activity anytime you want. It's nice. It's very nice. And I also have a local bank account, but just because I've had it since before I started working at Fidelity, or I don't work at Fidelity. They're just one of my custodians. But so anyway, bottom line is write all this stuff down. Get your statements out. Look at the percentages that you have in each of the categories. So how much do you have in safe stuff, CDs, money market accounts? How much do you have in bonds? If you know, it's very important that you write this down. How much money do you have in stocks or stock accounts? If it's a stock, I've seen this multiple times in my career, where somebody took out a tremendous amount of money into their company's stock, just the company's stock. That's incredibly risky, by the way. It is incredibly risky. If you're just putting a tremendous amount of money in one stock, and it's a company that you're working for, and I get it. People have an affinity for the company that's been helping them pay their bills, buy their houses, educate their kids. You still want to diversify because that is really kind of asking for it. I got to take a call here, and not really sure. Hang on one second. If you'd like to call, the number is 216-901-0945. If you'd like to get in touch with me over the internet, my website is bullingtoncapital.com, and it's got my office phone number there as well. And if you'd like to call in today, be a caller. The number is 216-901-0945, 216-901-0945. And I got to go to the phones right now. And Jason, you're on the Bullington Capital Report.
Hey, Bill, I had a question for you. You mentioned that you're getting closer to turning on your income and Social Security. So I'm thinking you might be trying to guess or estimate what the payouts are going to be when they have to adjust Social Security for the shortfalls and Medicare. And again, I know you can't predict; you don't have a crystal ball.
Right.
But I'm wondering when you're looking out 5, 10, 15 years from now, and you're saying, all right, we're going to have to do something here with the deficit. They're going to either cut benefits or raise Social Security tax or something. What do you think? If you had to estimate, what do you think they're going to ask people that are currently at retirement age for Social Security? If they were going to take Social Security, let's say in the next 5 years, what do you think the haircut they would take at 10%, 20, 25? And then the other quick question I had for you, could you estimate in your mind what you would think Irma is going to go up at every year? Again, I know you can't. This isn't written in stone, and this could be wildly off. But if I told you right now, every year, Bill, it's going to go up 6% Irma, and the people are going to get a 10% reduction in Social Security who are at retirement age 5 years. Do you think I'm right around that guess?
Well, here's the thing. You won't really know until it's too late to do anything about it. Okay? You can you can make any assumption that you want to make. In the realm of all possibilities, the probabilities are about the same. But the reality is, when somebody, if they try to curtail or cut Social Security, the vast majority of voters in this world are above the age of 50. Okay, they make up a huge percentage of the voters. So anybody that tries to reduce that significantly is probably not going to get reelected.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Now, they don't care too much about people that have a decent amount of money for Irma, though. They get you on that. Do you think that they'll gouge on the higher incomes for Irma?
To speculate on that, I got a 50-50 chance, right? So
yeah,
you might as well flip a quarter. And when it happens, I'll be ready to respond. Yeah, whichever way it happens. It's the old adage, hope for the best, but plan for the worst.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I only ask that because I'm not sure how aggressive I should be in rolling over into the Roth to get that money out of Irma's attack. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, is it worth going up a bracket because they're gonna gouge on Irma? I don't know.
Well, yeah, and the issue there is that you got a 50-50 chance, and the odds are not going to get any better. That's basically what it is. If I would actually look at the number of people, and if you really want to do a deep dive, look at the number of people who are actually going to be affected, if you can find those numbers, because those are incredibly difficult to get a realistic estimate of.
Yeah.
And then I would take that into account, make my decision from there. I don't see
how big the pot is. See how big the pot is of what they can take.
Sure. Well, and here's the other thing. Okay, if you start messing around with people's Social Security, you are a one-term president, senator, congressman. You're gone. You will not be able to keep your office if you start taking away. Remember, the fastest growing segment of the population, 50 and over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So these guys they're walking on eggshells. And is there a problem? Yeah, there's a problem. And you know what? They make all this noise. We're gonna have to cut this. We're gonna have to cut that. And they make that noise, and then they come and say, "Well, we can either cut that, or maybe we can raise taxes by 2%." And you know what? Well, they almost always raise the taxes.
Right. Last time, 83 or something is when they raised it.
When they raised taxes?
For the Social Security.
Oh, I don't really know.
People paying.
Yeah.
I think then they have to have an issue then, and they tried to fix it for 50 years or something by increasing it or something.
Right. Yeah. I would not want to be in charge of Social Security for the United States. It is the real problem is people aren't having kids. And you hear them talk about that, and I don't think people understand like what that really means. So I'm my kids. I'm just like, I just hope that they get this stuff fixed before now, over the next 20 years or so. And I got about 30 seconds here. I got to take a real quick commercial break, but I really appreciate you calling in. Great questions, and have a good rest of the week.
You too.
Thank you. And this is Bill Bullington right here on 1420. I'll be back after these messages.
You got a voice in your head, the same old guilt and regret. You heard 1,000 times before. After the choices you made, you're waiting for me to say.
Well, welcome back. This is Bill Bullington here every Saturday morning from 10 to noon now. I was reading by the way, if you want to call in, 216-901-0945, 216-901-0945. And I was reading Bloomberg Business Week. This is one of the better issues. I almost never spend as much time as I have with this. And I just thought I would take one of the articles that was in there, and it was, the title of the article is "Not Even Trump Can Keep Up with Trump." And this is guy's name is Wes Kosova, and I thought it was pretty interesting. The article is pretty mildly humorous, actually. But anyway, he goes on to say that Donald Trump returned to the White House in January with a far more ambitious to-do list than he had the first time around. His desire to challenge, to change, or ignore constitutional limits on his power was spelled out in Project 2025, the far-right governing agenda he disavowed with a wink during the campaign, and then immediately set in motion with a frenzy of activity that hasn't let up. From January 20th to September 20th, Trump signed 205 executive orders, an imperfect but useful yardstick of presidential productivity. Compare that with Ronald Reagan, another ambitious Republican president whose count at this point in his second term was only 35. That's interesting. 205 to 35. You'd have to go back to the 261 executive orders Franklin D. Roosevelt signed in the first 8 months of his third term to find a president who was quicker with a Sharpie. Not sure they had Sharpies back in the Depression. But anyway, yeah, Trump's plan going in was to do everything everywhere all at once so Democrats in Congress and federal judges couldn't possibly stay on top of the changes, let alone stop them. The news media, too, would be overwhelmed by the administration's numerous actions to wrest authority from other branches of government. In the memorial formulation of MAGA, Elder Steve Bannon, they would flood the zone with stuff. Not really stuff, but got to be polite. Anyway, and that's just what they've done. But it turns out there was a hitch in this plan. Not a year into his second term, Trump and his lieutenants are themselves struggling to manage the torrent of tariffs, deportations, lawsuits, countersuits, hirings, firings, troop deployments, and emergency declarations that they have unleashed. Wow. I don't think I've seen a better description of what's just happened in our country than that last paragraph. And it's interesting, really interesting. And this whole time, I'm just looking at all this stuff. And for somebody that wants to try to cut unnecessary expenses, you sure are spending a lot of money on all that. And guess what? It may have to be done. You're just hoping that Congress and the presidential office are working together at some point in time and negotiating. That's the best way. That's how this country's gotten where as far as we have gotten so far. And it's worked very well. And there's much more media, by the way. This is crazy. It reminds me of like the early 1900s when media was, if you go back, I always think back to going to the Cleveland Public Library downtown. I was really young, and I got these things. It was called microfiche at the time. It was like literally a film that you would have to load up into this machine to be able to read these old newspapers. And I was spent a ton of time reading them, and it was talk about bombastic. Holy cow! I mean, these news publications, they were getting. You would have thought that the world was about to end. And by the way, one of them was from 1915. 1915. And this was a newspaper. They used to be around. They're still around, but they're digital now. And I don't really want to mention their name because I don't want to hear from their attorneys. But the bottom line was, this newspaper still exists today. It's not in the same form. But in 1915, they were talking about UFOs. Literally, UFOs. I couldn't believe it. I was like, what? Did they? I don't think the Wright brothers, had an airline yet. There were no airlines. And they're talking about UFOs. I was like, wow. Yeah, some things, I guess, never change. But at least with today and the internet, it's unbelievable that some people, and I'm aging myself here, most people in America right today, the vast majority of people, now that I think about it, don't remember not having internet. And I'm just like, I laugh about that all the time. They have no idea what it was like, to have to do things the old-fashioned way. I would say everything was, it was a lot slower. There weren't nearly as many transactions being processed, and so it's a good thing we have advancing stuff. And what's my point behind all this? Well, my point is economies are going to continue to grow. Financial markets are going to continue to work. That's my opinion. How do I know that? Because we've come through times that were a lot harder than these. Can you imagine going into a world war and you're best form of communication is telegraph? I mean, think about that for a second. And is there going to be nobody knows what's really going to happen in the future. I can tell you what's in the best interests of the vast majority of people. You're not going to have a nuclear war because you wipe everybody out. And guess what? There's no reason to hang around. But I can't imagine that could happen. I mean, I could, but I think it's more of a nightmare scenario, and I don't think it's likely. Okay. Can it happen? Yes, I know it can. We all know it can. Is it going to happen? Nobody knows, and Bill Bullington doesn't think that it's likely, because I'd like to think that the world leaders are at least intelligent enough to realize that no one would survive. So that's really bombastic. But anyway, I get these, being on the radio is kind of interesting. You get a lot of different comments and stuff sent to my website or in emails. And kind of speaking to that just a little bit. And I feel bad for somebody that's worried like that. Yeah, because I think it's kind of unlikely. But anyway, and all this stuff came tumbling out from an article in Business Week. It said not even Trump can keep up with Trump. It's pretty funny. So far, he's got 205 executive orders. That was actually through, from this point in time, it's probably more like 350. I don't know. I'll have to go back and check on that. But it just kind of, it's interesting that they're doing a lot of stuff. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on. And sometimes the long-term effects of a lot of these actions are not completely clear. One thing I will tell you that should give you some peace is that the people that are running the banking system are some of the brightest, best people that I've seen. And we've been blessed in that regard with the number of people that have been running the Federal Reserve System. I mean, that is not an easy task. And they've done a masterful job. I mean, because if they didn't do a masterful job, how do you take a country with such a small percentage of the world population, and the amount of GDP, the amount of production is 5 times higher than the population relative to all the other countries? We are extremely productive here, extremely productive, and blessed to live here as far as I'm concerned. And there are a lot of other countries that are nice. I keep saying I'm going to go to Europe, and then I look at how tedious it is. This year, I'm just going to hire one of those companies to go gather all that data that you got to have to get a passport. I had a passport a long time ago. It wasn't that hard, but now you look at the process. It's mind-boggling. And there are companies that have sprung up, and for a couple $1,000, they'll do the legwork. That's how difficult that has become. So it's one of the things I wanted to check off my list this year was get the passport and take a trip over to. I want to go to France because I had to study French in college. It was a required. Well, not that you study French, but you had to have 2 years of language, and had to take it in high school. And I struggled like crazy. It was it was one of the hardest classes I had, and especially the last one. Man, you come in and professor or the instructor goes, "Fermez le livre," and that means close your book. So we weren't allowed to reference our books as it was all oral. Our tests were all oral. He would say the sentence incorrectly in French. You had to write it down incorrectly, exactly how he said it, and then you had to write the corrected version. Now, I don't remember a lot of that. I just remember how spooky that was. also remember that this happened to be a fall semester, and we had a Christmas break, and actually before Thanksgiving, we had a party. This guy, for some reason, loved to have students bring in food to the classroom and celebrate holidays. So I made these brownies. It took like 16 hours. It was a cross between a pudding and a cake, and it was a French chocolate mousse cake. Is what they called it. And he freaked out over that. I mean, it was, by the way, it was unbelievably chocolatey. I forgot. I think each slice had like 1,600 calories in it, and it wasn't a big piece. It took 24 hours to make, incidentally, and so anyway, I bring this in, and he is freaking out. He's a extreme chocolate lover. I was like, oh, well, cool. So before the end of when we came up on our Christmas party, I made 2 of those, and one for the class, one for him to take home. And lo and behold, my grade went up fairly significantly, and probably shouldn't admit that to the general public. But hey, whatever. It worked really, really well, and it was hilarious. That cake was so rich that if you ate more than a couple pieces of it, you just had to go lay down. And that's how much sugar and cream and all that kind of stuff it had baked in there. And it was hilarious. So when I would want to torment my younger brother and my friend from Pee Wee football all the way through college, him, and my brother played together all that time. And I would make those things, and I would go leave them in their apartment. They lived downstairs from me. They would come back from being out night on the town and having drank. You don't want to be eating something that's got all that sugar in it and all the other ingredients. And I would laugh because I knew that they would be throwing it up later. So that was the juvenile. That's the juvenile in me. Still think back about that and laugh. It was it was hilarious, but has nothing to do with investing, by the way. Although there was an old saying that somebody puked. That means they gave up on a stock and sold every share of it. So maybe that's where I got that connection. But anyway, so not even Trump can keep up. And it's kind of interesting, all the different things that is going on in politics. And politics can be very important. The government's responsible for about a third of GDP, and GDP is gross domestic product. It's basically the value of the output of the economy in any given year. And so when the government takes action, it's consequential. It makes big differences. And again, one of the geniuses about the United States, you don't ever have to worry about the government ever running out of money, because they have the ability, if it came to that. And this is like saying, I could run a sub 5-minute mile. Okay, I'm 62 and I've never been able to run a sub 5-minute mile. Actually, like a 4-minute mile, more than likely to be able to get that stuff changed like super, super quickly. And a lot of this stuff is it's doable. What's really nice about the economy is that we can fix any problem that happens. If the economy starts to slow down too much, the Fed's just going to come up and print money, make money available. If the economy starts heating up, if it starts moving too fast, they start taking money out of the economy. How do they do that? Well, they've got several different methodologies that they can use. I'll tell you what, maybe when we come back from the next commercial break, I'll talk about those. But the bottom line is they're using these tools that they have available to try to speed up, to make credit available, or to slow it down if it's overheating. And it's an ongoing job, and it is a thankless job. I mean, you still get people that think that you should be able to predict the future with a high degree of accuracy. Now think about that. Yeah, but I'm paying you. Well, it doesn't matter. You cannot predict the future with a high degree of accuracy. You can pick it, within a range, and oftentimes you'll be wrong there too. But anyway, I think I got about 40 seconds here before I got to take a real quick commercial break. You can call us at 216-901-0945, 216-901-0945, or if you'd like to get in touch with me, you can go to my website. It's bullingtoncapital.com, and I'd be glad to have a conversation with you, see what we can do to try to help you. When we come back, we'll talk about some of the tools that I use to develop a retirement plan, because in my mind, that's like the most important plan that you can have, financially, anyway. At some point in time, you're going to want to not do whatever you're doing anymore, at least not as much. And I'll tell you about that. So I'm going to take a little time out here for commercial messages. I'll be back in a few minutes.
There's a place where mercy reigns and never.
Well, welcome back. This is Bill Bullington. I'm here every Saturday morning from 10 to noon now. You can call us at 216-901-0945 if you'd like to, or if you want to go to my website, you can reach out to me directly. That's bullingtoncapital.com. There's a contact us page there. If you'd like more information on what we do for our clients, that's fine. And, I'll try to explain some of that over the next half hour, the remainder of the show. And bottom line is, we try to help you reach your financial goals, whatever they may be. We have an unbelievable array of portfolios, and some of them stock only, some of them stock and fund. That's my favorite. That's the stock and the institutional funds that typically they're only available to us on one platform. They don't exist outside of there, so that's kind of neat. And you can see exactly what's in there. Sometimes it gets a little upsetting for people that, they're not used to being able to see the individual stocks in their portfolios. And so that's one of the benefits, I think, of having funds, either ETFs or mutual funds. And again, we're using institutional mutual funds. The cost is typically around 8 basis points. That's like 0.08%. So that's why you can afford to charge a management fee on that. And which I think is the highest is 1%. It depends on how much money you're investing, but the highest rate is at 1%. So it's very economical, very economical. And by the way, I charge myself the highest fee that I can, just so that you know that I know exactly what those costs are. And are they worth it? I think so. Big time. I mean, it's one little error that gets caught, before the mistake is made can be, a lot of money. Seen that happen quite often. But anyway, and if you think I'm pushy on the radio, then I wouldn't call, because this is how I am all the time. I try to be as friendly as I possibly can. I know that, personal finance is just what the name infers. It's personal. And sometimes it's pretty scary, especially when you've got people like Donald Trump running around, shaking every tree he can find. It just, it's mind-boggling. And I'm not by the way, I am apolitical. I don't care who's in office. I want to know what your economic policies are, and I'll make my decision based on how I think it's going to do for the overall economy. And it's a big deal. And I think that the most important, or actually the most powerful person, actually is the one that controls the purse strings, which would be the president of the Fed, which up until lately, nobody really, a lot of people didn't really pay a ton of attention. And they didn't. Those guys are bankers, man. They're not excitable. They don't try to incite anything. Most of the time, they're trying to keep things calm. As left to your own devices, the general populations would run wild. That's not a great way to run an economy, run your country. And we've got one of the better systems in the world. The Federal Reserve System in America is one of the best it's ever been. And it does a lot of really good things. It enforces rules, by the way, which a lot of people don't like. If you're like the type that likes to break a lot of rules, well, I don't know what to tell you about that. Good luck. Yeah, and it's just such a nice thing to have. And whenever I get uneasy about the economy, I just start thinking about all the different ways and the steps and the moves that they can take. I mean, you think about this country coming back from the brink. During the Depression, and joblessness rates were unbelievable. They had never been seen that high before. The banks were shutting down all over the country, and we came back out of that. And by the way, the World War II actually aided in the recovery of the economy, despite the fact that it's a horrific event. Never want to see something like that again if we can avoid it. But the government had to issue bonds and borrow the money to spend to go over to Europe and help out our allies. And that was a big deal. And I think if it weren't, that urgent, it wouldn't have happened. Okay? So the recovery would have taken significantly longer. So I guess for lack of a better description, I think the silver lining of the fact that all those people had to pass away and was horrific. Like I've often observed, I don't think nothing is 100% bad, but it's tragic. And there's some, if there's any benefit at all that could have been seen to that, is that it ended the Depression. That was that was one of the positive effects. Now, don't want to ever see that again. Absolutely not. And I don't even know. I like to think that we're probably past that point. You hear them talk tough and negotiations and all that stuff, but the economy's doing really well. Their economies are doing exceptionally well across the entire world. If you measure world GDP, it's all-time new high. So things are they're not perfect. They're never going to be perfect. You know why? You've got people involved, and people sometimes we all know them. Probably all got one or two in our family. There are just some people that they just don't get along, and that's part of being human, I guess. But all other things considered, I am impressed. I'm impressed with the growth, with the tenacity. People just showing up and day after day after day. And I just can't imagine that's going away. It can't. Well, it hasn't. So, and we've been through some pretty tough times. So when you're thinking about that, try to put that in the back of your mind. And the reason I'm going on and on about this is I've had several calls last few weeks. I don't know what it is. I don't know what's going on that I'm not aware of. But some people are, and potentially it's probably something in their personal lives. It really doesn't have a lot to do with what they're reading in the newspapers or watching on television. But even if they are reading newspapers and watching on television, there's always stuff in there that's there to upset you. It's part of the media. They got to get your attention, man. They got to sell ads. And if you don't think that's true, well, it's because you've never worked in journalism. Guys, it's true, and it's unfortunate. I think, and who knows? It is good to realize, you don't you don't want to ignore the problems because a lot of them need fixed, you know. And if you don't bring it to the public's attention, they don't get fixed. So we've done pretty well. You know, I look around at us as a country, and I look around to see what it was like back when I was a younger person. And for the younger people today, here's the part that I kind of feel, you know, not really bad, but it's just cautious about, is that you have to have a lot of technology, a lot of training to get the really good paying jobs. You know, you need to know a lot about IT or trade, you know, which is, those are constantly evolving. You know, my dad was a remodeling contractor, so we used to see how we would open up walls that were over 100 years old to make additions and changes, and the materials were constantly changing that we were using. The old stuff there, I was always amazed. Like, man, they were doing this in the early 1900s. It was mind-boggling. And I used to hate that lath. And they would put the compounds over the lath, the plaster over the lath. That was nasty. That stuff got in your eyes, and you're breathing it in your hair, and it was like so we don't use that anymore. And it's really incredible. Just my point behind all this is that things have come a long way, and we got a long way to go. You know, we've got tons of problems that are going to get solved. I absolutely believe that. One of the best ways of participating in that is most of the companies bringing the solutions to the general public are publicly traded. So you can participate in that. Is it easy? Heck no. And I look at my portfolio sometimes and like, wow, you know, just let's close that web page down and get to something else. But then you look at other days and you're like, wow, what other country in the world would you have been able to do this? Not too many. And you know, I know probably a lot of people that have relatives in Europe. Well, there's a bunch of countries, and yeah, but they're small. I mean, think about how small the populations are for those countries. That makes it more complicated. I mean, one of the reasons that the United States is such a leader is we got a lot of land. I mean, there are 50 states that make up this country. That's not going away either. And but 50 states, that's the amount of land that we have is significant. By the way, I read somewhere once where about 70% of the population lived within a 50-mile radius of major cities. So, and that's different too. What that means is there's an awful lot of unused land out there. And if you ever doubt that, just take a flight somewhere. Take a flight somewhere, anywhere in the country, and then look down when you're at about 50,000 feet. You'll see an amazing amount of land that's not used yet. And so that's my reason I'm bringing this up is I always come up against, at some point in time, a doomsdayer. And someone this is it. This is the big one. You know, really? Do you know how long? I don't buy it. I think the economy is incredibly strong. I look forward to seeing a lot of the developments that you're talking about. And, you know, what's really interesting is you can go to a local Barnes & Noble, get some magazines if you don't want to stay on the internet. And I know younger people are all, it's all internet. Well, there are a lot of things in the old school that you're not going to get attention to on the internet. And it's just another source. And the internet's fine. I mean, I use it all the time. And in fact, I Google things before I go, you know, looking for other information on it. So, but more than one type of media is fine. And by the way, you do you. Whatever you like, whatever methodologies that you like. But I would try to, you know, keep up and not with everything, because nobody can do that. But if you've got interests, then hey, take a look at it. It all translates into a lot of the things that are necessary that you keep in your mind when you're investing. Investing is not easy. I mean, there are days where I'm looking at it and I'm going, holy cow, especially after you've had a couple of months where market's down. It seems like it's down every day. I remember March of 2000 like it was yesterday. It was just a coincidence. I mean, just a coincidence that I was making a major change and had put about 70% of the money that I was managing in stock portfolios, and I put that in the money market account. So 70%. And it wasn't, I mean, I knew that the market was overvalued, which is one of the reasons I was making some of the changes. But I had no idea it was going to happen then. That was dumb luck. But you would have thought that the people, because of all the noise that was going around the country, cable, all your news sources, Wall Street Journal, you would have thought that they were, that they were dying. And I'm like, wait a minute, you're 70% in cash. Everybody else has probably got more than twice the amount of money that you have in the stock market. And we held that position for quite a while, actually. And I even put bought a bunch of high yield bonds when the market was pretty low. I won't try to do that myself today. I have hired other managers that I like a lot that work for 8 basis points, and heck, that's cheaper than me doing it. And so they're actually making a lot of those changes now. But that, I remember we were, the guy that works with me, Gary, and I were at a conference, and it was Fidelity. They're going around the country because, market's been getting the crap kicked out of it. And they're trying to offer some solace to all the people that were, all the RIAs out there across the country. And since I've only got about 40 seconds to finish this message, I'm going to put it off until we come back from these commercial messages. This is Bill Bullington. I'm here on 1420 every week from 10 to noon now. If you'd like to call us, 216-901-0945, and I'll be back after these messages.
I come on my knees to lay down before you, bringing all that I am, longing.
And we're back. This is Bill Bullington. I'm here every Saturday morning from 10 to noon. If you'd like to reach out to me, you can go to my website, it's bullingtoncapital.com, and there's all the contact information that you need there. And it's unbelievable. I remember talking to people about the internet when it was coming. That's how old I am. Actually, I can remember one incident in 1996. I was speaking to a bunch of local business owners and was just talking about how the internet was going to be basically all the stuff that you see today, the YouTube, making your own, back in those days, I called it a television station. You can make your own television station. Yeah, it's actually a YouTube account. And so a lot of these things, and how much that was going to add to GDP, and and these are local business owners. And one of the ladies looks at me and she goes, "How can you be so positive?" I'm like, just looking at reality. There are, it's in human nature to want to improve and to have the latest and the greatest. That's part of who we are as human beings, and not just in America. It's all over the country. All over the world. And that's why I think the stock market's going to continue to work. I don't think this is the big one. Yeah, I think that the big one's actually going to be a long time after I'm gone. Probably after my grandkids are gone. And if I look at the way look at the rate of change over the decades and going back to the early 1900s, yeah, it's got a good run. So that should make you feel a little bit better. Is it going to be a smooth ride? Heck no. It's never been smooth. And there are times people have a tendency to remember a time period that, at the most a couple of years in a row. Sometimes you get these big advancements, 4 or 5 years, and that's fine. I remember the 1982 through 1987. I remember that pretty well. And prices got a little bit ahead of themselves, a little bit, and came down, corrected, scuttled around for 4 or 5 years, and then took back off again. Then you get this other period where the growth was, abnormally high for a few years, and that's the kind of slingshots all over the place. And a lot of people would like to take more control of that. Well, good luck. You're trying to control all over the world now. World's interconnected. We depend heavily on China. There's no doubt about it. They depend on us, and they, we're the consumers. India, Europe. So it's definitely a worldwide economy, and it's been that way for almost forever. If you look at the actual stats, but anyway, I got to take a real quick call here. I don't know if I should. Yeah, here we go. Just 1 second here. Just having a little bit of technical difficulty. I'll be able to get to the phone in very quickly. And wow, maybe not. Okay. Yep. Here we go. Brian, you're on the Bullington Capital Report.
Hey, Bill. How are you?
Oh, hey, good. How are you?
Great. Hey, I just wanted to call really quick and just mention if anybody had nothing to do today, I'm with Kitchen Tune-Up, and we are down at the BIA Stark County Home and Garden Show. It's Market 720 is there, so all the food and crafts, and then as well as all the home and garden contractors and vendors.
So where's that located?
It's at the Hall of Fame Village.
In
Their performance center. It's that big dome tent thing at the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Oh, wow. Well, that's pretty cool. Yeah.
It's a good time. I think it's only $5, and I think it's all until 6 o'clock today. So anyone has nothing to do, it's a pretty good time. Just walking around and talking to the vendors and eating and all that. And if you have some kitchen updating projects in mind, stop by our booth.
Yeah.
It's Kitchen Tune-Up.
Yep. Well, that sounds good. I'll probably give it a shot. I'll come down after the show and just stop by.
Awesome.
But
great. Well,
yeah.
Great to see you.
Yeah. Thanks. And have a good
thanks, Phil.
rest of the day. And I hope the show goes well for you.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Yep. No problem. Yep. And that was Brian Bidoff, and he's the owner of Kitchen Tune-Up. And you want to talk about technology? Oh my Lord, that is really advanced. And again, I mention this fairly frequently. I think my father was a home remodeling contractor. We built houses. He could do a lot of different things, but he's pretty talented actually. So when Brian went into that industry years ago, I was thinking, oh wow, hey, that's pretty cool. My dad used to do a lot of that, and I did a lot of that work with them. But they do mostly interior kitchens and bathrooms, which are the two most important areas for most houses. And when you're trying to sell a home, that can make it or break it. And people, they look at those bathrooms with the magnifying glass, and same thing with the kitchens. So if you're looking to add value to your home, or you've got an old one and you would like to replace it, I would give them a call. I'm going to head out there myself right after the show here. So anyway, this one article I thought was kind of interesting that came up in the Bloomberg Business Week. Was Donald Trump can't stop globalization, and he was talking about the tariffs. They're rerouting trade flows. That is hilarious. You put up a bunch of tariffs, and then all the countries around the world are like, "Oh, how do we get around that?" Which countries are not? They're going to export to the countries that were missed in the tariffs by that bill, and then import them from there. So it's going to add some cost, more than likely, which means inflation. And that's something that is incredibly difficult. It's hard to make major changes without increasing the costs. It's just almost never done. It's very, very rare. Even the best of CEOs have a hard time making major changes without incurring costs. It's not how that stuff normally works. So when you're going to make as many changes as we're making now, yeah, some of the cost is going to go up. All the more reason you want to get a portfolio that's designed for today. A lot of portfolios that are out there, a lot of the technologies that we used to use are outdated. I still think a lot of I don't think people really understand completely when you're looking at a fund like an exchange traded fund or even an institutional fund. They look at it. Well, that's just a fund. No, if you don't know what that fund is doing, that's like driving to work, looking in your rearview mirror. I'm telling you, it's and it's probably going to end up the same way. Not good. So you just have to pay a little bit of attention to it. It helps if somebody knows, is very familiar with it. And there are tons of financial advisors out there. I'm not the only one that knows this stuff. But if you feel comfortable, if you're listening, if you're thinking about doing some planning, I have the back of the envelope benefit of more than 30 years experience. Most of the stuff I can do in my head just because I've done it over and over and over and over again. Not too many surprises out there. And so, yeah, give us a call. I'm free to meet with people. Melissa does all my scheduling. So if you call the office, and tell her you want to meet, she'll put it down on my calendar. And there's no cost for that. The initial few meetings, actually, it really depends on how complicated it is. There's no cost of just finding out what we would do, how we would do it, what kinds of stocks would be in your portfolios. And by the way, it can be, for some people, it can be upsetting. You start seeing a bunch of companies that you have probably seen before. Procter & Gamble, actually any of the bigger companies that are out there, GE, they're going to be there. You've got, my mind is going on me now, Google, Microsoft, Intel. A lot of them are tech now. And that's another thing that's kind of over the years has gravitated, that a lot of your indexes are more and more overweighted in technology. And that's fine when you're, if you're not already retired, that's fine. And to have tech in there, I think you should be participating in most industries. But if you are looking for income, or if you're looking for something, you need growth and income. And that's by the way, today's environment, that's still true. You're going to need growth because the income that you can get safely, it's typically not all that high. And the reason I'm saying safely is I get calls from people occasionally say, hey, there's this fund out there, it's paying 10%. Okay, well, if it's got a 10% dividend, which is what they mean typically, then that's not safe. Okay, the safe money only pays like 4 to 5% categorically. Okay, they're doing something They're either investing in lower quality companies or they're borrowing money. It's called leverage. They can borrow money at a relatively short-term rate and go out and buy these securities that have higher than the rate that they're paying in income, and they can do it on margin. That's not as common as it used to be because most of those guys got snipped multiple times. And when they get snipped and you're investing in their fund, guess who else gets snipped? Yeah. So, again, you have to look into just about everything anymore. And you've always had to do that in my industry. And I guess I took it for granted that most, financial advisors were actually doing that, and that a lot of clients would read the material that you would recommend for them to read. And man, it's so funny. As I get older, I'm realizing that people weren't doing that. They have a tendency, and we all have this tendency because we're all human. When you're looking at the material, you tend to look and fixate on material that supports what you want to believe, whether it's true or not. And that's the biggest problem. And that's where an advisor, that's where they can help. It's basic. It's a relationship. It's advisory. This is what I would do in your situation. I would take these steps, and taking those steps, it's fine. It's a good thing. Hopefully it's aligned with your interests, and we've got some really fantastic tools these days. I didn't ever think that you would ever see a portfolio that could buy fractional shares, in stocks. And I'm thinking, that nobody wants to do that because the accounting is so expensive that they're not going to put all the money in that. And, well, guess what? I was wrong about that too. and I'm glad because it's really opened up a lot of opportunities for people to invest and to meet their financial goals. Anyway, I got to run here. This is Bill Bullington. I'm here every Saturday morning from 10 to noon. You can go to my website, bullingtoncapital.com, if you'd like to reach out to me, and I would definitely like to hear from you. With that, I'm just going to close. Have a good weekend, everybody. Good luck and good investing.
You just caught another edition of the Bullington Capital Report, broadcasting every Saturday at 11 a.m. on AM 1420, The Answer. If you have a question and you'd like to speak to Bill personally, you can call him at 330-664-0700. That's 330-664-0700. Or online at bullingtoncapital.com. That's bullingtoncapital.com.
The preceding program has been paid for by Bullington Capital Management, LLC.